For this week's update, we're going to be talking about the new spellbook, combat, and skills, and some new developments for the cooking experience. So we're already in the game, and you can see when we click on the spells, we have a new punch attack. I've made this spellbook, which will be the home of all the different skills. It shows you the spells for whatever skill you currently are doing. So for combat, we have this punch skill, and we'll also have some more skills that you can unlock through the altar. It shows you a lot of information about the spells, such as how much it costs, how long it takes to cast, and the cooldown, and then also what kind of damage you can expect it to do. There's more that we can unlock here through the altar. So in the future, you'll have a fireball attack and a revive attack. And I've also added a section here where it explains how you can use the spells, how to unlock them. So I hope that will add more clarity to the game. And I probably should be adding a lot more informational sections to the other user interfaces for things like the furnace or the stove. We've also implemented the action bar too. So you can click on spells to execute them, and you can also drag directly from the spell book onto the bar and position the skills however you want. This will be a lot more interesting once we have more skills unlocked. I've also added a new accuracy stat because with these combat improvements, I wanted to give the player the ability to block attacks, miss their hits when they're attacking a monster, and then also have critical hits as well. So we have new damage indicators that will trigger accordingly. Right now, because a player has very, very low stats, can't really trigger critical hits. So as we check out the new combat, it's now controlling the attacks on the server side, and that means also controlling how often the player can attack. And because this punch attack is so instantaneous and the cooldown is instant, you can't really see that the attack is being executed, but you would otherwise have a cooldown that displays on top of the attack. I also upgraded the Godot version this past week, and now there's like some weird positioning issue with the tile maps, so I'm gonna have to fix that. But in any case, with this refactor of the action and attack system, I've now changed it so that the server has authority over everything about the player. The user can only request that their player be moved. Before, I had a more complicated system where the client had authority over their own player, and then the server sometimes had authority over the more critical things like their inventory or their currencies or things like that. With this update, I also fixed the teleportation between maps. It now goes directly to the portal where you were at rather than some random place on the map. I also made a lot of changes so that the server side is now controlling mining as well. So if we put it on auto attack, we can see that this is automatically mining. We have a mining spell here, which I haven't drawn the image for yet. I've sped up the mining so that we can just see it a lot faster. But if we pick up this ore, you can see we have 58 in the inventory right now, but it will immediately add it to our inventory. So I fixed some inventory bugs where it was having issues adding it until you left the server and then came back. So this is in a much, much better state. And we can see that the automatic mining is working. All of this is controlled by the server. The only thing that you're really doing is indicating you want to pick up things and where you want to go. I worked on mining and the furnace and crafting. So I wanted to make sure that the cooking process could work end to end. And the cooking process does require ingredients as well as some gelatin and things like that. So we can deposit ore into the furnace and also some coal, and it will speed up the process. But as you can see here, as it completes, the furnace actually creates metal bars for us, and this is all run on the server side. So now we can go to town, and you can see here our furnace is still chugging away. We can create a copper gelatin here, and this will actually add it to our inventory, which we can use for cooking. There's still some bugginess with cooking working on the server side, but I'm gonna make sure that all of that is polished with this upcoming update where I'll be working much more on the cooking, which I will show you in a moment. But you can see there's some weirdness going on here, but this is indeed actually cooking. There's just a lot of issues that I need to fix here. I've really been rethinking this cooking process because initially I was going to have it so that you have, similar to the furnace system, you have just the stove automatically cooking things for you. But since cooking is one of the main parts of the game, I might rework the system so that it requires some actual player input and food doesn't become something that is just automatically created, because food is going to be a powerful thing within the game. And just as in real life, labor and production don't just come out of thin air. But I really want to rethink this idle component because later in the game, I do want to introduce the ability to create your own restaurant, to have your own staff, and things like that. I think that would be really fun to animate. Now that we have the attacks and action system, I want to move on to the next stage of development, which will be making sure that we've animated the cooking process. This is a huge part of the game because it is a culinary game. I want to make it so that you can actually cook using the ingredient, you can stir, you can boil things, and so on. But I started off by drawing the cooking environment, which will perhaps be the the background. And I want to connect the visuals of the cooking experience to the actual stove in the game. So if we look at the stove, we have three different visuals for it. You have this basic black stove. You can upgrade it to become a silver stove, and eventually it'll be a gold stove. So I want to reflect that here and make these assets interchangeable enough to have those reflections to add that level of reality to the game. And as for the actual cooking experience, when you're making a recipe, I want to have a bunch of different controls here. I've drawn this closer up view of the stove. And similar to the stove, you can also upgrade the pots and pans. So this pot should be interchangeable as well as you upgrade things. My plan with this is to make it similar to Cooking Mama and other cooking games where you're changing the controls, there's like some skill, and you're also directly using the ingredients that the recipe calls for. So for example, for the jelly, it calls for a dewdrop and a tin to set the jelly in. So there'll be a lot to animate here, and this is all that I've started so far. I'll also make some pots and pan utensils that you have to create in the game. This will be a more graphics intensive upcoming weeks, but I want to create a really good interchangeable cooking system. So it'll be easy to switch out animations and not have to recreate scenes. So I'll take my time doing that. And I'm also planning on working on more monster animations. So we can perhaps create some special effects skills and have the monsters run on a more complex action system like the player now is, where it can alternate between different attacks. Because this kind of system is going to be necessary for when we have the boss attacks and perhaps some more difficult monsters on further maps. So that's all for today. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Subscribe if you'd like to continue following this game development journey, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with the next update.